Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Design Recharge. I'm your host, Diane Gibbs, and this is my friend and my third time she's been on. It has been a while.
Yeah.
She was on episode 23, and I looked back and also on episode 33, and now I think it's episode 159. So I'm real excited to have Nikki back. And I'm joined here today with Nikki Villagomez, and she has a side project that has taken over and exploded, I think.
Well, thank you.
To say the least, right?
Yeah, well, it's taken over my life, if that counts.
Right. So when I met Nikki, I had been introduced by a mutual friend, Charles Jeffcoat, and he connected me with her. And she was, I believe you were still in, where were you living?
Ohio.
You had just moved.
We had just moved there. Yep.
And then in 2014, you moved back to the South. And she went to LSU. I went to Auburn. So we both have an SEC bond as well. So at least we're both Tigers, right? We can say go Tigers.
That's right.
So, all right. Well, give us a little bit of your background. I know you went to school at LSU. Yep. You also played tennis,
I did.
Right?
Yep. I was on a tennis scholarship there. Yep.
And you studied design.
Got my BFA in graphic design from LSU. Yep. Played 4 years, graduated in 5. And then after I graduated, I moved all my stuff back home to my parents' house. I got married to my boyfriend who was on the men's tennis team at LSU. And then we moved to New York, and it was all in a 2-week time span. Graduated, got married, moved to New York. And so you can imagine the people who came to our wedding, which was like 30 people that fit into the living room. They didn't know what to get us, so they just gave us money, and we spent it all in one place, which was the Howard Johnson Hotel in Times Square, because we didn't know where else to go. But that's how we started our life. And it took us about 5 days to both land jobs and find a place to live. And it was this teeny tiny apartment in Brooklyn, and that's where we started. So lived in New York for 3 years, and it was great. You know, I think looking back, it was one of those decisions. It was very much an impulse, but I'm very glad I did it, because there's no way I could do it now, you know. And then lived there for 3 years, and then moved to Columbia, South Carolina. My husband's an architect. He got his master's from Columbia University. And then when he graduated, was offered a position in Columbia, South Carolina. And so that's how I started freelancing. And I freelanced for a few years and realized really missed having an AIGA chapter, and there wasn't one in South Carolina at the time. So that's how I got involved with that and founded that chapter and served as president for 2 years, and moved to Ohio for work 5 years ago, and just relocated to Charlotte. So I'm happy to be back down south, which is now I'm only an hour and a half from my parents in Greenville. And I'm working for the same company that brought me from Ohio to here, which is Dixon Hughes Goodman. So I'm the creative studio manager for an accounting firm.
Right. And so when you moved to Ohio, you were just heading up a department. And so then they saw what you were able to do, and they kind of created this position for the national. Right.
Okay, so there were other people in place when I moved to Ohio. I was just another designer for the healthcare group. And then when I relocated to Charlotte so that I could build the creative studio that serviced the whole firm, not just the healthcare portion. So it's been a very interesting challenge, building a creative studio within an accounting firm and working with a bunch of accountants and tax people. But it's been very rewarding to be part of it, and very challenging. But I taught graphic design and typography at University of South Carolina for 5 years when I was there. And so this experience is very similar in the fact that I'm having to teach these people. They're not students, but I'm having to teach them the understanding of graphic design and how powerful it is if it's done well to communicate a message.
So do you miss teaching?
I do. I love teaching, and I'm excited for this workshop at the High Five conference. But this is a whole new thing. You know, I taught for 5 years. That was fun. I taught a semester at the University of Akron when I lived in Ohio, and I loved it. And I'll probably get back to it when I get my kids out of the house. But right now, my plate's full with this job, which has been challenging.
And so you also love typography so much that you named your daughter after your favorite. Right.
Yeah, I did.
Mrs. Eves, right?
Eves. That's right. Yep. My daughter's middle name is Eves, after the typeface Miss Eves. Her first name's Isla. Yeah, it went over real well with the in-laws and the parents.
Sure.
But it's one of those things. I love the attention to detail with that typeface, the ligatures, the story behind it. It's named after Sarah Eves, who was John Baskerville's mistress. So she was the one responsible for publishing a lot of his work after he died. And so Zuzana Litko, who designed Miss Eves for Emigre magazine in the 90s, it was a way to honor the women in the history of typography. And all of that put together, I thought it made a beautiful story. And so, that's my daughter. It's a good thing I wasn't, I always say it's a good thing I wasn't influenced by dingbats or impact or something like that.
Right. But it also kind of wraps the rest of everything that we're talking about today, is that it's these stories you find, these found type. It is your love for type and the attention for detail, but also the history that goes into it. And so when did you start collecting type? And when did you connect it to culture?
So I have found I have always, when I've gone on trips, taken pictures of random signs. So it's always kind of been one of those things I've done subconsciously. But there was when I was president of South Carolina AIGA, we had events every single month. And that was what really got the chapter up and running, which is something I think you and I talked about, how to get a successful chapter going. You can't just do a beer, let's hang out at a bar every 3 months and expect the chapter to grow. You got to have big events. Well, December is a tricky month because of the holidays, but I wanted to keep the momentum going. So the summer before the chapter launched, there was the AIJ leadership retreat where all of the board members come together for one big meeting. And I met the president of the Honolulu chapter, and I said, oh man, it'd be so great for us to do some kind of an exchange, because I have never been there. It'd be so neat. So that's what we did. We did AIJ South Carolina and AIJ Honolulu culture exchange, where we boxed up anything and everything that had to do with South Carolina and did a switch. And they did the same for us, including pieces designed by South Carolina designers for South Carolina clients. So it was this event that really started everything, because when we opened the box, it was literally Hawaii in a box, and seeing the designs and how their culture affects the design choices they make was very, very evident. So the next year we did the same culture exchange, but we did it with the Las Vegas chapter. And so it was, again, the same thing of really seeing how their culture affects the typographic choices they're making, and their color and the font choices and everything. Their culture plays such a big role. I was very interested in this, and I love to travel. So that whole idea kind of lay dormant in the back of my head, because my love of typography was being met because I was teaching. So it wasn't until I was plucked out of my comfort zone and dropped in freaking Akron, Ohio, where I had never been before. And now I'm an in-house designer, and I'm limited to 2 fonts and 13 colors and templates, and, in-house design and everything that comes with that it really was like, oh man, I need to do something that I can have a healthy balance with the work that I'm doing. And so and I went to TypeCon, and that was my first time going to that conference. It was in New Orleans. And that was the first time that I really got into what I wanted to do, something with my love of typography.
Can you see and hear me?
I can. Me?
Can you see and hear me?
Yeah. I can see and hear you.
Okay. Somebody in the chat. Okay. So how did it go from being a blog to starting to travel and give talks?
So how did it go from being a blog? So I just did the blog. I think the thing with the blog was I was just going to post 5 days a week. That was the goal I set for myself, pictures side by side from different parts of the country, and write every day. And so I came in at 5:30 every morning and wrote. And that's what I did 5 days a week. That's what I did. I didn't do it for likes or retweets or anything. It was really just, that's how I started my day. And so I did that, and then slowly started the speaking engagements. AIJ Richmond was my first one. So I think it was a couple of years into the blog where I finally started to get some traction with the speaking engagements. And I don't know why I'm so adamant about speaking, because it's very nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
So, and then AIGA Richmond, you know, once you start with one AIGA chapter, they all just kind of are it's like an interconnected community. It's really taken off. And so now here it is 5 years later. I think Richmond was in 2012. And so now I'm going to have my 21st, 2nd, and 3rd speaking engagement with AIGA chapters this year. So it's, and then that led to HOW and speaking at TypeCon. So it has taken off, but it's so fun. As nervous as I am, it's so fun to talk about typography and see how excited people get, because my speaking engagements are all unique to the city I'm in. I ask people who are local to the city to send me pictures of the typographic landscape 30 days before my talk. And then I use those pictures as part of my presentation. So it's very interactive. So each presentation I give is unique. So that's been fun.
So did you speak at TypeCon before HOW?
No, I spoke at TypeCon this past summer. And then HOW was 2 years ago when it was in Boston.
So how were you approached? Do you think they just saw what you were doing with the AIGA and they kind of, how did that come about? Being approached by HOW or TypeCon?
It takes a lot of perseverance if you want to speak at these conferences. They don't approach you unless you're the big name, I have found. You have to go and annoy the crap out of them. So I went to HOW when it was in San Francisco the year before, and I met the woman who was in charge of curating the speakers. And I said, you know, I'm the one, I put a face with a name. I'm the one that's been emailing you saying I'm very interested to speak. I would love the opportunity. And that was pretty much it. And so the next year I resubmitted my proposal to speak, and then I was selected. And I think it also helped to get some friends to be my advocate, to say, yeah, she's not going to freak out on stage. She could make it through an hour.
Right. So then what happened with TypeCon? Same kind of thing? So
TypeCon, I submitted to TypeCon 4 years and was accepted the 4th year. I got rejected the first 3. So there is a lot of rejection that comes with it. And, you know, I get it. They need to have a diverse group, and they need to pick the best proposals and all of that. But my proposal never really changed from year to year. It just grew in terms of my experience. That's really the only thing that changed. But I just stuck with it, because I really believe in what I'm sharing, and that I hadn't seen it before. You know, you can go and watch somebody do a portfolio talk anytime you want, but you can't really see somebody pull pictures out of the city that you're speaking on and really analyze it based on what people have sent in. So
absolutely,
it's been a lot of rejection. I'm not going to lie, but that's okay.
But that's part of the success is many failures.
That's right.
I mean, you know, and that's what makes you stronger and what makes you better.
Oh yeah.
Right.
That's right. You learn from that.
And it's also what you believed in. Like you said, things didn't change. So then you get asked, I guess, yes. Where you proposed to do a book. And this is HOW. So F&W Publications, how did that happen? Because that's really what we're talking about today.
Right. So after I spoke at HOW, they sent me an email saying, you know, your talk was very well received. I think there were 500 people in my room that day. It was crazy. My hair was falling out. I was so nervous. They sent me an email saying, you know, your talk was very well received. We got a lot of good feedback on it. Would you be interested in putting together a book? And at that time, so HOW was, I think, in May. So June, they sent me the email. That coming September, I got promoted to this position I'm in now. So I knew I only had that summer to knock out the book. And that's what I did. I came in early, or I snuck away on the weekends and from my family and put the book together and threw it at the publishers and editors of HOW and said, best of luck to you. Good luck. And then that's what came out of it. So they did help me a lot. I mean, I'm not a writer, I'm a graphic designer. I do the best I can, but there are sections that they had to help me with the writing and everything. But those are all my pictures, and it's my story.
So did they give you what kind of parameters did they give you? What about the size of the book? How did they want you to organize it? Can you talk a little bit about that stuff?
So the only parameters they gave me were the size and the gutter and really how much room to leave around the edges of the page, and about how many words, which is really hard, because if somebody says we need this to be 1,300 words, like, I don't know what that looks like. I have no idea.
Right.
So I just started writing, and I did the whole thing in InDesign, and then I'd copy and paste it into Word to see how my word count was, and then paste it back. And slowly started piecing it together chapter by chapter.
So what about organizing? Did you already kind of have because you've organized it in, which I love how you've organized it, ghost signs, manhole covers, graffiti, hand lettering, signage, neon signs, wayfinding, and cultural observations.
Right.
So that's kind of your table of contents.
That's it. Yep. As I had been writing on the blog, I noticed certain themes were starting to emerge, which I wasn't expecting. And it's always fun when you're doing a project, the things that come out of it that you aren't really looking for. So one of them is graffiti. And so I would designate a whole week to street art, where I would just post side-by-side comparisons, and it was called #Graffiti Week. So I wanted a chapter in there on graffiti. And then manhole covers, anybody who knows me for half a second knows my obsession with manhole covers. And so I definitely wanted a chapter in there where I highlighted manhole covers that I've come across and how unique they are, and how beautiful the typography can be on something that's so utilitarian. And then the other ones are just kind of common, like ghost signs is a very big section that people specialize in. And then the wayfinding signs I have found to be very unique to the city, even though there's a standard, the green sign with the white letter, it's very standard, but there's little pockets in cities where you can still see the older signs that are unique. And those are the ones that I zoom in on.
Right. So you were able to organize it. They gave you the size. What about typeface?
Yes. So thank you for asking about that. My very good friend Martin, who's in Sweden, designed the typeface that it's set in, Aptifier, Sans, and Slab. That's his typeface. And he had sent me that typeface as like you're my friend, here, use this. And it wasn't associated with the book. It was before I even started the speaking. It was more, I just released this typeface. I think he had released it with Font Bureau, and I loved it. And so again, keeping this whole project personal, because I truly believe when you have a personal investment in something, only the best can come out of it. So the whole book being set, and that was another thing, like, oh my God, I'm doing a book on typography. How in the world do I choose a typeface? Well, I chose it because it's my friend's typeface and that he designed. So Martin in Sweden designed it, and he's definitely in the credits there. I made sure, because it had gotten taken out at one point, so I made sure it was put back in, because it was really important to me that he got credit for the typeface. So those are the only two fonts that are used in the book. So, I mean, really, it was kind of like this. These are all your images. Did anybody ever say, hey, we want you to use some of these other things? Or when, cities would send you their images, would you, because there's all kinds of stuff that you have to go through when you're dealing with rights, right? Yeah. Image rights or copyrights. Right. And that was one of the things you did not want to have to deal with, right? Correct. And I had plenty of pictures at the time to choose from, that me being able to fill up a book wasn't an issue. And I just didn't want to have to pull all the paperwork and send it to people and have them sign it. And the new thing is a lot of the pictures that were sent to me for my presentations, I was able to go the next day and take pictures of myself. So they are represented in the book. They're just my pictures of them.
Right. All right. So let's get this out of the way. So you are taking pictures on a regular basis. And I think one of the things that you've talked about in some of the other talks that I've heard you give, and I'm sure on your talk, is that when you go visit a new city, you have to, even if it's your current city that you're living in, you have to look at it from a tourist kind of mentality, and you really have to take yourself out of the stuff that you see every day. And I think that's really important. So let's talk a little bit about that and how you kind of approach and how you're able to take so many images regularly.
Well, when I go to a new city, it's very easy to be the tourist. So I usually have my speaking engagement on a Thursday night. And so Friday morning, I get my flight back home. So I'm only gone literally a day, usually in the afternoon. So I wake up stupid early on that Friday morning. I mean, like 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and just walk around and take pictures and fill up. I mean, sometimes it's like 350 or 400 pictures of just taking. And like you said, well, I'll take a picture from a distance and then I'll zoom way in and then I'll get different angles, because it's really fun to explore how different they are when you're close up, which is not usually how signs are meant to be viewed. They're meant to be seen from a distance. So yeah, I mean, it's very easy to play the tourist when I'm in a different city. I have found it to be extremely hard to see the culture of Greenville, South Carolina, because that's the city I was born and raised in. So I don't see it. I'm so immune to it that I really have to force myself to be conscious of everything. And, you know, there are ghost signs in downtown Greenville that I've driven past so many times I never saw them until I forced myself to go walking and looking for them. It's like, oh my God, how did I not see that?
But it's literally forcing yourself to go to maybe a different part of town, get out of your car and walk. Around.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really hard in the car. I've tried it with kids. It doesn't work.
So what kind of camera are you using?
Yeah. So my camera.
These are beautiful. This is a really zoomed in one.
Yep.
That you get an idea.
I was taken in San Francisco.
And to me, that's a really high res looking image, you know, and I know that you're not standing right next to it because you're not that tall.
Right. Right. No, this is my camera that I took that picture with. So it's a Canon point and shoot. There are two best parts about this camera. One is this wrist thing, so I can hold it and like take a picture with my phone. And then the zoom lens on this. It was really important to find a camera that I could take a picture with one hand, because I don't want to have to be, doing one of these things while I'm about to get hit over with a car. So this camera has been great. And it was like $150 at Target.
So then do you just get a really big card in there so that you can take 300 pictures?
Yeah. And then I empty it every time I come back. I empty it clean.
So then how do you decide what goes on the blog? Do you just, now that you've gone to a city, you have enough stuff to fill it up for every day for 2 months or a month or whatever?
Yeah, that's where it gets tricky to explain, because it becomes very intuitive at that point, and I think that's a very bad answer. But you know how when something becomes so intuitive to you, it's very hard to explain. Like brushing your teeth, how do you explain to somebody how to do that? You have to really go down to the step-by-step process. Sometimes when I'm walking around, I'll see a picture of something and I'll think, oh man, I saw that when I was in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I'm going to have to pair these two together, or crest buildings are another fun buildings to take pictures of. So I'll have blogs about crest buildings. And so, and manhole covers are fairly easy to pair, but it's the regular signs, I'll try to pair them by like jewelry signs or trash can signs or parking signs. I try to find a common theme. This is how parking signs are handled in Boston. This is how they're handled in San Antonio, But
a lot of it has to do with just having a really good memory then, correct?
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, I'm constantly looking through my pictures as I'm posting. So I'm always being refreshed as to what I have and what my current inventory is. But that made the book hard because I file the pictures away after I've used them on my blog so I don't repeat. So I had to go into my used folder to do the book. And so it just like totally messed me up. I'm still recovering from that.
I'm sure. So then do you have them organized? Like you come in, you're going to organize them into ghost signs and manhole covers and things like that. Do you go ahead and do that?
Yes. I have them organized by city. So like I have an Atlanta folder or a Miami folder, an Orlando folder. And then those are all like the Florida cities are in a Florida folder. So I organize them by location, and then in there I'll have a manhole folder so that they're easy to find. But after that, it's just pig being killed barbecue sign .jpg. I mean, it's just like whatever
just
I want to name it.
Try to be as descriptive so that if you know, it's not like IMG 687.
No. They
right?
don't have names. Yeah.
So I'm going to go to some of the questions that we've gotten. So Dan wants to know, and he's also in North Carolina. Have you seen the Barabbas or Bear? I'm terrible. I feel like I'm reading the Bible now. Album, Heart of the City cover art. It's a New York City manhole cover in the shape of a heart. Have you seen that?
No, have not seen that. Sounds really neat.
That does sound cool. All right. Well, you'll have to send her a picture.
Send me a picture.
All right. So then Jason wants to know, did you handle all the photo editing as well? How time consuming was getting all the images that were under different lighting conditions to look consistent and even? And is that something you do regularly when you come back?
Editing the photos. Yeah, to answer your question, yes, I did. I don't have an assistant. We can't all have assistants, Diane, that help us. So yeah, I handled all of the cropping and resizing and all of that, because I have found, when I take a picture from across the street, I get a dump truck that's coming down the street or people crossing, and I try to crop them out. So I'm just focusing on the bridge.
You kind of
got hit by a car taking that picture. I'm literally in the middle of the street there in Syracuse taking that picture.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's fun. Stephen Powers does amazing hand lettering. Those are his love letter to the city. So they're murals. And he's done them in Philly and Syracuse and Brooklyn. And they're these really fun messages to the city.
That's cool.
So I do all the photo editing.
So, but you're doing those as the blog comes out, not necessarily.
Right. So all the photos that I haven't put on my blog yet haven't been edited. They're just sitting in there ready to go. And then when I decide to use them, then that's what I do the morning of the post, is I put all the pictures together.
And Jason says, I feel like those bridges were in a mini documentary on sign painting that came out a few years back.
Yeah.
And is that true?
Probably. Yeah. Steve Powers is very well known for his hand lettering on bridges and buildings.
All right. So Andre wants to know, Nikki, have you seen the Love Park sign in Philadelphia? I read that it's going to be closed. I know it because it was a really good skateboarding spot. The typography is great, I think.
I know what he's talking about. I've never been to Philly. I'm hoping to go there for a AIGA speaking event, but I have not been there yet because I want to see the Steve Powers love letters. And I think Philly would be a really cool city to do a speaking engagement there, to see what the people send me, their pictures. I haven't seen it in person though.
So just so you know, everybody, Andre posted a link, and if you click on it, it won't take you away from us. It'll just open another page, so you'll be able to see that as well. So you can check it out. Okay. All right. So then Dan has another question. Have you created a design intelligence assessment of different cities and towns?
A design intelligence assessment.
DIA.
So at the end of all of my talks, I always end on like a summary slide or a conclusion of what I have learned from the pictures that have been sent to me. So for example, Miami yielded 2 summary slides at the end of that talk. And it's basically a culmination. When I look at all the pictures that came in, like for Miami, I got over 100 pictures sent to me, which was awesome. There were 2 themes that emerged from those pictures. One was neon, the amount of neon pictures I got because of the nightlife of the city. And then the amount of graffiti I got, which again has to do with, there's a huge area in Miami called the Wynwood Arts District. That's just, it's a melting pot of all these graffiti artists from all over the world. So at the end of all of my presentations, I give this design intelligence assessment based on the city. And so my talk at How and TypeCon is more of an overarching of all of the end of my presentations that I've given. I hope that answered your question. I'm not sure if I
think it sounded like it was answered. I hope as well. So
yes, in Charlotte, that was the other thing, Diane. Sorry, Kathy just reminded me. Charlotte's end assessment slide was about hand lettering on beer and wine glasses. Go figure. Young nightlife here.
When she wrote beat, I was like, huh.
Yeah.
About beat. Thanks. Okay, so June to September doesn't leave you much time for something that's been taking you 4 years. How I would have kind of thrown up at that moment, I guess, because it feels so overwhelming because you still have to do your day job. It's not like somebody's going to take care of your kids and you're going to be able to go to work. Right. So this is in addition to what you're already doing every day for the blog, right?
That's right.
So how did you superpower through this?
Well, I'm very much like other designers where we respond very well with a deadline, right? And not so well with no deadline. So it was probably a good thing that I had such a tight deadline, because then I couldn't think about, oh my gosh, I have to write a book. I couldn't get nervous and second guess myself. Like I just had to buckle down and do it. And I was just very organized with my time. I don't really goof off a lot. I don't really surf the web a lot. I was very focused, and I knew what I wanted to say, and I knew what I wanted the message to be. And I wanted to represent the cities well of the ones that were represented there. So
sometimes contracts can take a long time to just get it. So once you finally got that contract and it was set, then, was that into July, or was it pretty quick on the contract and then you handed it over to them? Yeah,
the contract was pretty quick because they have it. So, they do so many books a year. They have that contract pretty well done. So that was just a matter of me signing it and agreeing on the terms. And I knew going in it wasn't going to be about the money. I had resolved myself to know I'm not doing this to make a lot of money. And I think that helped the process too. Because if this was my livelihood, I would have been a lot more nervous and making sure I just would have been a lot more nerve wracking. So because it wasn't about the money, I was able to just focus on getting the book out.
And so then you did everything you did. You wrote a bunch, you did all your images, put them in, you designed it the way you wanted, and then you gave it over to them and you said, I can't do anymore. You're going to have to go from here, which I don't know if that's standard. I don't know if I know they do a lot of books that are other designers, but I don't know if that's standard that the designer normally gets to design the book. Just because it is a big publishing house, and, they have to have some sort of things that make it, I would think, that kind of fit in with their parameters.
Yep. And my design did not. It did not fit into their parameters. I had it on a grid. I was rocking a grid, but it was not rocking their grid. So they had to take it, and they've got a whole team in place of designers. So they were able, that's what they do all day. So they were able to take it and run with it.
But did they change placement of where pictures were, or did they?
I don't think they changed placement of pictures or organized. Nothing too dramatic. There was the picture in the back. The one picture I didn't take, they had cropped it. So I asked them to uncrop it. And then they had taken out my friend Martin's credit for the font, and I asked them to put that back in. But other than that, it was fine. It was a pretty smooth process.
That's good. I just think some people maybe don't have an idea of how it works. And I think working with somebody who does work with a lot of designers and they're doing stuff, that it's going to be different, because a lot of times for us, it's about control. We want to control what the outcome is. But when you're the designer and the author, it maybe gets muddy. So I think that was a really good thing that you were able to kind of give that over, that you were starting this other job and you weren't going to be able to take it. So you had to kind of relinquish. And maybe that made a better, because it came out how long when they had it and then they sent you proofs and then you went to press? How long from how long?
So I turned the manuscript over in August, which was right when I took the job, August. And then the book, I got the proof, I think in September or October. And then it came out November, I think.
Yeah, I think I got it for Christmas. I think that was Yeah. So, all right, Dan asked another question. So do you receive type, spacing parameters, or other house style template information when working on a project?
When working on on the book?
I guess
or any project.
Well, I know you do at work because you are setting up those things probably for everyone.
Do whatever I want. They didn't, the only parameters they gave me with the book was the gutter, the margins. And I think that was part of the problem is I didn't understand what they needed in terms of a grid for the inside. And that's where a lot of issues were. So I just had it set up on a standard grid and they had it set up on it's like a grid on steroids. It was this crazy grid. So
88 column grid or something.
Yeah. I mean, it was a crazy grid. So I had it set up to where I thought it needed to be. And then they ran with it from there and they knew what they were doing and it was printed somewhere in China, I think. And so they've worked with them before and I felt better knowing just give it to them, let them deal with it. I'm not good with the fine details.
Well, and I think, there's type on every page, but it's not like, for me as a visual person, I love that there's a little bit of the commentary going through, yeah. But then I love the, just the simple little lines that you have in there and then having where each image is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's really, really nice. And I actually love how you broke it, just how you organized it. I think that's, I know it kind of came out in the blog, how you were organizing it and stuff, but I think that's great. But when you, if you had not been doing a ton of publication design, and granted, working with an accounting firm, I'm sure you're doing annual reports or other, a lot of other documents that have lots of type, but maybe not a lot of images. I don't know. Maybe you have a lot of images in accounting.
Infographics.
Oh, infographics, right.
Yeah.
So do you have a affinity for publication design?
Well, that's my background. That's when I worked in New York, the 3 years there. That was my first job out of school, was working for Hearst magazines. So I worked for Cosmo, Good Housekeeping, Oprah. I was the in-house junior designer that supported all of those magazines. And then my last year there was for Women's Wear Daily, which was a high-end fashion daily publication. And I produced some magazines, designed some magazines, was freelancing in Columbia. But that's really my only background with that. But I love it. I love the publication design.
Well, and it really is a system, which I think works really well with you being able to organize. I think that probably helped you I think also just having so many years doing the blog, you had already organized things,
Right.
And I think you have to be really organized in publication design, and you have to have a good memory.
Yeah, you do. Well, and you have to understand how the flow and how people digest information. You can't just put stuff in however you want. There's a flow to it and organization that has to make sense.
Right. All right. So did you have to comply with the Fed's foreign printed material, white space restrictions that may have been a factor in their steroids? Or do you know about that?
Are we talking about the same thing? Are we still talking about typography?
I know. Yeah, I think we're talking about the parameters and the restrictions that Hal gave you, I guess.
Yeah, they do. They definitely have to comply with the restrictions. And I think they gave them to me in a very diluted way. And I just did the best I could. And then when I handed it back over to them, they were able to run with it.
Gotcha. All right. So we already talked about the camera. And so so really, I would think talking to an AIGA chapter is different than talking at Hal, and then is different than talking at TypeCon.
Yes.
So I would think AIGA was more maybe general, and then and more specific for that city. They're more connected with that city. Yeah. And then Hal is a general kind of design. You're going to get people who are UX, UI people. You're going to get people who are, traditional print designers. And you're going to get some web people. And then TypeCon, you have people who are really fanatical and love typography.
That's right.
So really, it kind of gets more niche maybe. So what's different, and how do you prepare your talk? And I know that you get nervous, and you've done these talks for a long time now, but you still get nervous. And I think it's always good for us to remember that you're just a regular person. You put your pants on the same way we do. And, but that you get nervous. And so why talk a little bit about that and how you've gotten over some of that? I know lots of questions. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I would say out of the talks I've given, the AIGA chapters are the most relaxed in terms of setting and intimate, you know, because there's usually 50 to 75 people. And people usually like shout out things in the middle of my presentation, like, I know where that is, or I drive by that every day. And that helps me kind of relax a little bit, that it's not as formal. But it is still incredibly nerve-wracking because I'm getting up there in front of my peers. I didn't really get nervous getting in front of students and teaching, because I'm seen, you know, when I walk in, I'm the authority on this. But when you're speaking in front of your peers, you can't mess up. And then you take that to the next level at How, and I'm not kidding, there was like 500 people in there, and I just have never seen that many people in my life. And so, you know, again, I couldn't mess up in what I was saying. And then again, take that to the next level of TypeCon, and then those people are fanatical. I couldn't say the wrong term. I had to be very careful about how I spoke about different typefaces and things like that. So that one was definitely the most nerve-wracking experience, just because of the audience. So I guess it just depends on the audience. But the AIGA one seemed to be the most relaxed. And how do I get over my fear of speaking? I wear the same thing every time I speak, same exact outfit, same shoes, same jeans, same shirt under the shirt, like everything's the same. Because I think, you know, consistency, there's something to be said for that. I don't have to worry about what am I going to wear. Right. So, and then I think just having a bunch of talks under my belt, and after speaking, people always seem really excited to come up and say, oh, I really enjoyed your talk. And that helps, that, you know, it seems to be well received.
Right. Well, do you think that, I mean, I think one of the things that I like interviewing you about it, because you are so passionate. And when it's something that you're passionate about, you kind of forget, about all those people that do know all the terms and that are going to be, you know, snarky behind your back maybe. And they can just let it go too, because you are so passionate and you are teaching them or having them look at something in a new way. I think it has a lot to do with just that you are so passionate about what you're doing. And absolutely. These things are all around us.
Absolutely. Right? That's right. And I own it. Yes, it is a special pair of my speaking underwear. That's right. If I'm wearing any, you will not know. But yeah, I just, I don't know. I think it sounds really nerdy, but as I've gotten older, I've really embraced my love of typography. It's not like something I'm trying to hide. I totally embrace it. And, you know, everybody has some little niche that they're nerd about. And this just happens to be mine. I didn't ask for it. It's just what it is. And I really enjoy it. And it seems that sharing my love of typography with other people has gone over well. So I take all of that into consideration.
All right. So when you go and you speak in the beginning, did you have notes? Did you, as I teach and I'm telling students, I'm like, you practice over and over, and you time yourself and you practice again, and you cut things out, and you know what you're saying on each slide, but you don't necessarily have to read the words on the slide, or maybe there aren't even any words on the slide. How has your presentation changed from like the beginning to where it is maybe now?
Well, it's actually, the format hasn't changed that much. I'm very much a creature of habit, and my presentation is broken up into 3 parts. Part 1 is my past. Part 2 is my experiences, and then part 3 are my influences. And then part 3 is where I really dive into the culture of the city. So I spend the first 10 or 15 minutes talking about my past, because I think it's important that people understand how I got to where I'm going. And it's not about, wow, look at where I am. It's more about, hey, I've had the same struggles that most everybody has had.
Right.
And then my influences, I grew when I was in college, it was all about David Carson. And I was at a very Swiss school where it was all about the grid. And so, learning about David Carson's artwork was very inspiring to me, because he's like, completely anti-grid. Right. And so I talk about my influences and how, because I think that's played a really big role into getting me where I am. And also I think it helps people understand me on a more personal level, because the talks that I've been to that have resonated with me are the ones where I feel a personal connection with the speaker, as opposed to somebody just getting up there and showing, look at how great this work is, and I won this award. Right. And so the third part, part 3, is the bulk of my presentation. And that's where I really go into the culture exchange, and then a few slides that are pairings from my blog so they can see how it has morphed into. And then here are your pictures, and I pair their pictures. So if somebody sends me, like in Charlotte, a picture of a brewery sign, I'll pair that with a picture of a brewery sign in Saudi Arabia. And so each slide is Charlotte on a slide paired with somewhere else in the world. So it's pretty cool. Fun. It's a pretty fun experience.
Well, and were you a big traveler before, or was this kind of new as well?
Yes, new. I mean, I traveled with tennis growing up, not much. I mean, just like in the Southeast. And then in college, we had to play all the SEC schools. So traveling to those schools. But now with these speaking engagements, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Syracuse, New York, Miami, Florida, like I'm all over the place. It's been extremely rewarding to be able to go with AIGA and make these talks, go on these trips.
Yeah. Well, and I think it would be it keeps adding to your portfolio, I guess, in a way. But what I love is that you also teach people that they can go and see these same things, and they can, this is not something that is just a your thing, that this is something that everybody can see, and everybody's going to see something maybe a little different. So maybe you're doing pairings and you're seeing something and you're sharing kind of that insight. But I really like that. I like that part of what the blog is, as well as what you've done in your book.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. So I love the zoomed in, and I know we've talked about it a little bit, but so that's what I'm drawn to, because I guess it's, I want to see it closer than what I can see it in real life. And I think that that's kind of what, like, oh my gosh, look at that tiny little neon, or all that bird poop, or whatever it is, right? Maybe not the bird poop, but rust or whatever, right?
Yeah.
What kind of images and signs do you think other people have been drawn to, or what do you hear a lot from in your audience?
Well, in the audience, I don't know. I think the questions I get asked is, how is my city on the radar in comparison to other cities you've been to? Where do we fall? Like, how are we doing with that? So it's more them wanting to know how their city stacks up, which I think that's kind of expected. I get that. But I think it all goes back to the manhole covers. It's the most unexpected chapter, because people don't expect to discover so much detail in something that, for the majority of people, don't even look twice at.
Right.
Yeah. So that's San Francisco, and it's got the bridge on it, the Golden Gate Bridge. And so what I love about that picture is you won't find that manhole cover anywhere else in the world. That's specific to San Francisco.
But even the beautiful Albuquerque one.
Yep. Well, there's a more beautiful one than that, and I have it on my phone cover.
Oh yeah.
See, I'm a nerd. The Albuquerque is just beautiful, and they're all over the town. It's just very unique to the city and would look completely ridiculous in Charlotte, So
you had sent me some images, and I know we don't have much time left, so I'm going to plop some of these up.
Okay.
These do go a little different than how they had done on the other platform. So I actually stick them into the chat, and then anybody can click them.
Okay.
Hannah says that they make jewelry that looks like the manhole covers in New Orleans.
Yeah, they have the star and the moon. Yeah.
It's the
Crescent.
Crescent City.
Mm-hmm. Crescent City.
All right. So that one is the wayfinding. Mm-hmm. So it's, it's not just it's the street signs, it's the signs that are advertisements, but the wayfinding is the one you want to kind of start with.
Right. So that one that I sent you, I think that's the one in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Mm-hmm. And it's a very unique wayfinding. It's the thing that caught my attention the most about the city, next to the manhole covers. That one in particular, you can see it celebrates Route 66, which is what that street is. And so they celebrate that on the street sign. I'm scared to click it because I'm scared I'm going to go away on this thing.
You're not.
Okay.
You can click it. It's going to open really big.
Central Avenue.
But it's also the shape of that sign.
The geometrics. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that goes with New Mexico's kind of their maybe it's not their flag, but their license plate signs and stuff like that. And then I would wonder if, like, usually the big poles that hold them are not turquoise. I would think, right? They're usually green or dark green or black or something.
Right.
So that's something else that you can kind of pull out and say, hey, this is what they're doing in Albuquerque.
Right. The colors are very unusual.
Okay, so let's see. And here is the next one, which is the Don't Dump, which is a manhole cover. And that's why I think it's this one. Maybe.
Yeah, so this one was taken in Boston. And again, it's unique to the city because it says Don't Dump, drains to Charles River.
Right. There it is.
Yep,
but
that's it.
People can get to it by the link. All right, and then Cabbage Town, which I love the zoomed in. So of course, and you do show a lot of those. You'll show the big one and then you'll zoom in. So why? What makes it so that you also want to see the zoomed in? That the far away is not enough?
Because that's not how you're supposed to see it. And I think there's a lot of interesting details to discover when you're zoomed in, like the way that you can't plan for. And I think that to me is what is the most fun about all of these pictures is you can't plan for how the concrete absorbs the paint. You can't plan for how a 18-ton truck is going to affect a manhole cover's typography. So for me, it's those or what weather does to a street sign and how the letters start melting off. I think that to me is what's so fun to discover.
And that one zoomed in, it's all the little holes, you know, in the concrete. So, and then the next one that I just shared is the full from further away.
So that's taken in Atlanta, and that's on the Krog Street Tunnel, which separates two neighborhoods, Cabbage Town and Inman Park. And in the tunnel, it's just full of graffiti. And that's what one of the little girls behind me, little girl, was taken in the Krog Street Tunnel, which is in like this constant state of change with the graffiti artists constantly putting their art up.
Cool. All right. So you can go back to the same thing and take different pictures all the time.
Yeah, right? That's right.
So this is the ghost sign that you sent me. Where's this one?
Cleveland.
From?
So you can see it. That's in the middle of the building. It says Cleveland Cooperative Stove Company.
Yeah.
So this is a building. I mean, can you imagine restoring this building? How beautiful it must be. But the outside of it, that's what it looks like. I mean, it's all this beautiful ghost signs. They're just so unique.
Oh yeah. Well, and so many of these old buildings, they won't have windows. They'll brick them up. And to me, it's like, I just wish, because the windows are so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree that offices, oh my gosh, I took several zoomed in pictures of that with the manicule, the little pointing hand. And then on the door there, that green door, there's like a little woman's face.
Yeah.
I mean, just crazy details. It's just such a cool sign.
So you're not a really large lady, do you ever worry about, are you alone when you're walking around? Do you ever worry?
Yeah. I mean, when I'm in my AIGA talks, I'm alone. And when I took those pictures, my husband and kids were with me, but my AIGA talks alone. And actually this guy over my shoulder, the flying cucumber, was taken in a back alley in Richmond. That was probably the scariest one because it was kind of at night. In a back alley, but I don't know. I have my camera. I kind of look unassuming, I think.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that other people think you're going to hurt them. I'm actually worried a little bit about maybe you getting hurt, but you can still run fast, I guess. You play tennis, but you can hit them with your camera or something. So then this is in Miami.
Yeah.
The last one I just
my goodness posted. With Miami. This is the graffiti artist Retna, Retna, and he has a very distinct style of that calligraphy looking script lettering. And his work, I mean, this building is unbelievable. And he has a couple murals in Wynwood when I was there. But I'd never seen anything like it before. You see the little graffiti under a bridge. You never see it. I have never seen the amount of graffiti at this level in such a condensed space. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it definitely looks very Arabic.
Yep.
I guess. I mean, does it? Is he from somewhere
I don't know where
else?
his background is, but I know he was inspired by gang writing in Los Angeles and Egyptian hieroglyphics. And I mean, if you research him, he has this whole history of what has inspired him. So all of this says something. I just don't know what it says. And most recently, unfortunately, he has an ad with Justin Bieber. It's like, oh, what are you doing? You don't go together.
Right. So did the Windward, did they commission him to do this?
Yes.
Because this would have taken lots of time.
Yeah. So there are sections of buildings in Wynwood that are set aside for different muralists to come in and do that. And so you don't paint on somebody else's spot, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Andre says he got the Bieber fever.
Well, I guess the Bieber paycheck is what he got.
Right. Hey, sometimes we do what we got to do. So then this is the radio TV, and I love this one. Again, this is zoomed in, and just the color to me, and that the neon sort of stays, the glass sort of stays very solid, but the other stuff is just faded in such a beautiful, the record. I mean, that thing is just amazing. So where is this one from?
So that was taken in San Francisco's Chinatown. Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep. So Chinatown, that was a wonderful place to be. Beautiful signs there.
I want to tell everybody, I mean, it's really chocked full. I mean, pages and pages, lots and lots and lots of images, and pick it up. And I'm going to share you a link. I'm going to give you a link right now so you can
so we were while you're doing that, I was in New York for work. We have an office there, and I went to the Barnes and Noble, and while I was on a break, and they had my book, and they had it on the shelf there, and that was already, you know, like, oh my God, I can't believe my book is in the New York City, Lexington Avenue Barnes and Noble. And then right next to it, they had like one of those stands that had I think it said something like highlighted features or selected features. So I pulled out my book and put it on the features. What are they going to do?
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think this one should be featured.
Yeah. It's not every day.
That's great. So then they can also follow your blog because you're still doing this. You still go in early in the mornings and write every day?
No. I had to cut back with this job. There's only so much I can do. And, you know, I'm still doing it for all the same reasons. I just can't do it as frequently. So I'm now posting probably 2 to 3 times a month as opposed to 5 times a week. Right. But, you know, I think at the end of the day, it's still the same idea, the same message. And then the speaking engagements are still happening, which makes me really happy. So, and I work for a great company that's very supportive, you know, especially considering it's an accounting firm, that they're so supportive of me and my love of typography. So so far it's working.
Well, and it's like a side project that's become something else and bigger, and you still have to be a mom, and you still have to go to your job.
Yep.
And you've added these other things on top of it, but those other things have really added to this side project, passion project as well, because you're able to go to different places. So I just want you to be careful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people can also follow you on your blog. Yep. And then they can also follow you on Twitter. I think you're also on Instagram, but you do post a lot on Twitter as well. Yep. So that's a really good way. And you do have a comma. You always have a comma.
Yep.
And that's a big thing. You want to end with that and tell them why a comma?
Well, a comma is my favorite punctuation mark. I have it tattooed on me. There it is, my comma. I think, you know, just what it represents to pause and not rush through things and take your time. And my comma, you know, because it's mine, is set in Bell Gothic, which is a derivative of Bell Centennial, designed by Matthew Carter in the 70s. And that was the first typeface that I really researched and it got my attention. And so it kind of is a tie back to that. So I do love commas.
That's good. I like the pause. Yeah. My mom would, of course, my mom's here. She always comes every week, thankfully.
That's
she loves me. Yeah. And she would always, her and my dad both say I am too busy and I need to pause more. So I think that's yeah, that's something I need to, she probably would not want me to get it tattooed on me. I already have a tattoo.
I will
and they
say
don't really like
I learned a very valuable lesson. Tattoo artists are not letterers. It is very true. It is not, the comma on my wrist is not perfect. It's just more representational of what it's supposed to be. The tattoo artist is not Matthew Carter.
Right. That's true. Well, and I'm sure Matthew Carter has his own grids that he was using, because that's a really pretty boxy, because I think it's a pretty boxy comma, right?
It is. It's lines. I don't know what he was thinking, putting a curve in it. I don't know this tattoo artist what he was thinking, but it's fine.
He thought it was wrong, maybe, and he wanted to help you out.
She won't notice.
Right.
Little did he know.
It's not on my backside. I'll notice.
Yeah.
Well, next week, I'm going to give a little promo for what I'm doing. So once a month, I do a rapid recharge, which is just me usually, and it's going to be 20 minutes. It's never been 20 minutes, but that's the goal, to make it 20 minutes of me teaching you something. And, but next week I am doing a workshop with Lenny, at Creative South. And so Lenny's going to come on and we're going to, give you a little preview of what our workshop's going to be, because it's a little different. It's a little touchy-feely workshop maybe. And, yeah, so a little preview, and we're not going to just do 2-hour workshop. It's actually going to be extended. We're going to reach out, and it's small. It's open to only 40 people. And so that's where we max out. And so then you're going to be put into groups, and you're going to do some stuff we're going to have stuff for you to do for a year. And we're going to keep connecting with you in that year, Lenny and I both. So, and I do like touchy-feely things. So just Alma says that, and I do. So I would love to have you guys back next week. It'll be me and Lenny. I will not be doing any singing afterwards. Lenny and Mike like to do lip syncing, and all I have is a fake mic that I used to use, and look, like a kid dropped it. You see, it's like flattened. I did game shows, typography game shows in my classes, and then they would get extra points if they won. Their team would win, because I'm geeky like that. I always thought it'd be fun to be a game show host. Clearly, I did not I missed my call. But you can always email me at diane@rechargingyou.com. And I was trying to find, I know I had it out there. I'm going to plop that in. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to go ahead and send them in, and I'll, awesome. Hannah, I'm glad you ordered it. It's really a great book. And I mean, and it's packed. It's not like super thin or anything. I mean, it's a really good, and the image quality is great. I mean, look at that R.
I know. That was a funeral home in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy that you can remember that. That's what's crazy. I mean, that.
I'm telling you, I have a story about all of them.
That R.
Yep, that's in Boston.
So that reminds me of Jason Karn designed typeface, and he talked about it last week, called Motor City, and it's from Detroit. And then he has another one called Railroad Co., I think, and that's the one. It kind of reminds me of that one. But yeah, anyway, lots of cool typographers go to Creative South. So anyway, next week, that's what it's about. So check it out. If you have ever missed an episode and you want to go back and see, you can watch most of them at I just pasted it in the wrong spot, I think. Oh, maybe I didn't copy it. It's rechargingyou.com. And Alma asks, can you give your Instagram account? Is your Instagram private, or is it open?
It is private, but that's it. It's just my name, Nikki_VZ. And it's the same icon as my comma that you see at the top of my picture there.
It's your comma.
It's my comma.
Not Matthew Carter's. And so if anybody wants to get every week, I send out the questions, and then you can get the link to come live. That's what we do. So you can always sign up, and you can become a VIPer. So I'm excited. Nikki, I'll have to get your address and I'll send you one of the old ones and then I'll send you a new one when I get it finished.
Okay.
But thank you guys for beforehand helping me decide. But Nikki, thank you. You're always fun to have on.
Thanks for
I'm
having
always
me.
excited. Thank you. And thank you for offering to help with our little AIGA chapter as we get it rolling.
Anytime.
Well, we'll see you guys next week and have a great one. And Lenny and I'll be here to be all touchy-feely next week. So we'll see you then.
Bye.